even down to Honolulu, that area there are some points where it is pretty shallow, where it is pretty flat as far as the landmass, but at the same time, places like Honolulu, even Honolulu, as you can see that the tsunami evacuation map is a little bit deeper. It goes further inland. And one point I want to make up too, we've been talking about a wave. We could be talking several waves because that would be, we've been mentioning the first wave. And so tsunamis generally you don't just have one. You're going to have a bunch of them. So there is that possibility where we will see waves possibly for several hours. And you can definitely see as we take a closer look at the island of Kauai evacuation maps, you can definitely see that Honolulu up at the top and also West Kauai, there's a very large area that goes inland and also on west or make that east Kauai, places like Waialua, also the Kapa'a area, Anahola, Honolulu, those areas are also within that evacuation zone. Kauai also is older geographically or geologically rather, and so that means there are larger rivers. And so that also means that you should stay away from any of the waterways that go inland. The Waialua River, for example, is one. Navilivili Harbor is another, where you're going to have some of that energy from the tsunami going further inland because of the fact that it is a wider waterway, and then that will be able to go in. A couple of years ago, we had a smaller tsunami, and we had videos of that actually going up the canal, Kawainui Stream, I believe it is, up in Kailua, where you could see the tsunami wave. It was only about yay high, but you could definitely see something rolling in on the river headed toward Enchanted Lake. Now, you'll see something on the surface, but at the same time, remember, it goes all the way down to the bottom of the ocean. And so even if the wave isn't that big, there's going to be strong currents. That's the reason why the Coast Guard has ordered evacuations of the harbors, because boats could be pushed around by these currents and could be pushed into piers, could be pulled away from their moorings, could get loose. We saw that in 2011. We saw boats hitting each other, causing major damage to vessels, also causing major damage to harbor infrastructure, and that's why we're seeing all of those boats leaving.
And we're at around 5 minutes out, I believe. It's 7:05, at least on the clocks that we have here in our studio. This is the time where we're watching for potentially water receding. Again, if you're near the beach, of course, go away. Do not stay there to watch the tsunami. This is an incredibly strong event, and we're no stranger to the power of water here in Hawaii. The river's point, that's a great point. All of that water, that energy rushing in, it's going to impact the entire island potentially when it comes to those rushing waters, rushing up the rivers, and of course the coastlines, of course, will be the most impacted. That's it for Ben and I here in the Weather Center. Let's send it over to Chief Meteorologist Jennifer Robbins with more.
Thank you so much. Very good information, gentlemen. We are going to be seeing a lot of action within the next hour. And first, beginning with that receding water and then the rush of energy. So the initial readings that they were talking about in the press conference, 3 feet, lots of forward motion we're talking about. It's almost like a freight train racing across the ocean, initially at speeds of 500, 550 miles per hour. Once it meets the shallow waters, that's when it slows down to speeds of about 30 miles per hour. Usually I use this graphic when we talk about flooding from rain, but this shows you the power of water and how incredibly powerful water can be and pick up people, just sweep them right off their feet. 1 foot can pick up cars, 2 feet can move SUVs and heavy trucks. So the power of water, especially along those rivers and everything that's meeting along the mountain base, is going to be a big concern, even if it is at 3 feet. So I just wanted to take a close look at the past most affected areas. This is going to be a lot of wraparound energy. That's why we have the tsunami warning for all of the islands. So it doesn't mean we're going to be in the clear for one island or the other, but Hilo does have a history getting hit hard by tsunamis, 1946, 1960, and 2011. It's known as the hot spot for tsunamis due to the bay shape. It's incredible of how shallow shallow the waters are. And because of the shape of the bay itself, it actually has some of those waves get even bigger along Hilo's side. Also, Kona has suffered damage in 1975 and 2011. And we have been seeing damage with other tsunamis across the western end of the state, particularly over on Kauai, on Oahu, the north and east shores. You can see some run up depending on the wave direction. And that's key. And that's one component we really don't know. Like Ben and Drew were talking about, there's a lot of information that's missing over open waters with the lack of buoy data that's over the open water. So the wave direction is a big player of what kind of wave will be coming our way with these tsunamis. So we are coming close at 7:07 right now. Initial readings will likely be seeing that receding water at first over on Kauai, and then anywhere from 0.1 to 0.3 a possibility. And then that energy, like we're talking about, racing across the entire ocean at speeds of 550 miles per hour, that energy is going to get caught up. And so we could see the biggest of the tsunami surges come in during the 8 o'clock hour. And then it's going to be highly unpredictable throughout the night, especially with those strong currents. And that's why evacuation zones, you must just heed to all of those warnings, especially along the coastline, along the rivers, and along anywhere there is water. So taking a closer look at the readings from tonight. So 3 to 4 meters, that translates to 10 to 13 feet was observed along the Russian coast. We did see in Japan about 1.3 feet. It was up to 3 meters was the forecast. Over in Hawaii, initially we're forecasting 1 to 3. With that Johnson Atoll reading at 3 feet, we could see that energy coming our way around that marker, but it could be even higher, like we're talking about Hilo and the shape of the bay, that could pile up water even more. So that's a big concern after the 7 o'clock hour, and Guam ran anywhere from 1 to 3 meters, which translates to 3 to 10 feet. So historically speaking, we've seen a number of tsunamis like we've been talking about throughout the evening. Over 160 since 1812, the origin, Alaska, Chile, Japan, and Russia, and it can cause a huge surge of energy traveling across the ocean. And like we're talking about this evening, the power of water is incredible, and you can see the history is there. Tells a big story. With 1960, magnitude 9.5 arrived 15 hours later, up to 35 feet. In 2010, magnitude 8.1 or 8.8, we did see 3 feet, so the direction of the wave does play a big role in that. And then Japan quake at 9.1. 6 to 7 feet with the property energy. So we're watching the buoy readings very carefully, and the latest information, let's send it back to Mark and Stephanie.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jen. We are now at 7:10, which is exactly when the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center predicted that we would see the first arrival of the tsunami waves generated by that powerful earthquake in Russia. And as we're looking here, Drew and Ben, what are you noticing?
Way off in the distance. We're talking about way off in the distance there, right around the middle of your screen, right at that point. It looks like there is something happening there as far as like ocean activity. You see some whitecaps that are slowly spreading across the bay. We haven't seen something that often occurs with tsunamis, and that is the pullout of the water. Usually there'll be an area, or places like Hanalei, the water will recede a lot, and then the tsunami will come back in. But I'm not sure exactly if that way off in the distance there is actually something at the moment. On the right side of your screen, right where the sunbeam is, there's a little bit of current activity. So you can see there are some currents that are occurring as some of the water starts to flow out. But as far as the actual wave action, Drew and I have been looking at this, and we just see something that appeared off in the distance right at the edge of that point, where you can see some what looks like whitecaps. I don't know if that could be like something that is basically artifacts off the camera or whatnot. But one thing I'm also looking at very closely is the actual waterline, the shoreline there. Not seeing anything. And again, 7:10 was the estimated time of arrival. And so that's Again, as it indicates, it's an estimate. It can be faster, it can be longer. You know, it just kind of depends on what this had to travel through, and also the kind of earthquake that it was, because then it depends on how quickly it was pushed over. But no doubt, it does travel very quickly in the ocean. You know, there's nothing there to basically hold it back. So we're looking again, speed of a jetliner. But at the moment, that area of white really hasn't moved an awful lot. So we're not quite sure exactly what is going to be happening, if the tsunami, the first wave, is going to be late. But again, you can see some streaks on the ocean. Those are like rip currents that have developed, and
definitely the tsunami is going to be playing into strong currents. We're watching the water at least start to move in a little bit. Like you said, over near the sunbeam reflecting off of the water there, you can see the direction of the water flowing into the bay. Again, it was 7:10. This is the best prediction for the arrival of the wave. Much like weather models, it's very hard to simulate the entirety of the ocean. So that was the best prediction given by the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. And again, we're going to keep watching this. If it is delayed out here for Kauai, that also means that it will be delayed as we're going further down the island chain. Again, it does seem like we are seeing some waves moving in. Again, this is a very active scene where we're trying to watch exactly what's happening.
That's right. And, you know, I mean, taking us back now to 2011, Ben, I don't know if you remember, but the 9.1 magnitude quake in Japan, it was a very powerful earthquake, and that sent us a tsunami wave as well. And you could definitely, when you do see it on camera, you can definitely tell that that is the tsunami wave. You talk about the receding of the water, and I remember vividly watching Hilo Bay, and you will definitely see that big difference there. As far as right now, though, again, we are just monitoring and looking at the shoreline for any changes there. And again, once again, off in the distance, that sunbeam that you were pointing to, you're also noticing some subtle differences and changes in the water there. No major recession of the water yet, which is a telltale sign that the tsunami wave has arrived.
Sunset is expected at 7:12, so we've still got some daylight. We're just past that. And thank goodness that we still have that light out there to really give us a clearer sense of what is happening. We're going to be staying on this cam at Hanalei right now. This is a live stream overlooking Hanalei Bay with the expected arrival of the first activity of the tsunami generated by the 8.8 quake. We're looking at this. Our first alert weather team is monitoring this shot very closely. Literally an unfolding situation as we're watching the water and kind of paying close attention to what we're seeing here with the conditions.
And again, the water here has to wrap around, since Hanalei Bay is on the northern portions of the island. It's coming from the west and northwest. Russia is off to the northwest of the island chain. We've been showing that map of just completely open water. So we have to see a little bit of a wraparound. First, it hits the Nepali coast and then starts to move into Hanalei Bay, move down the western and leeward coast of Kauai. So we are going to continue to see how this evolves.
And Drew and Ben, talk about the impact of, I know this earthquake, 8.8 earthquake off the eastern coast of Russia, had the depth of 46 miles down. Now, talk about how that plays a role in the strength and power of wave.
Well, usually the deeper an earthquake is centered, the less likely it will cause an earthquake. It will cause a tsunami, rather. However, it kind of depends on the type of earthquake. Drew had explained earlier, if it's a slip, not too bad. If it is a thrust earthquake that goes straight up and that pushes a whole column of water up, that's one of the things that we were seeing in the Thailand earthquake, the devastating, I believe it was 2006 earthquake. Might have been, I might have to check on the date there, but the one that devastated so many places like Indonesia and on Christmas Eve of that year. Right now, Hanalei not really showing anything, but then again, 710 was an estimated arrival. There was a wave that was recorded, according to Haima officials, at the buoy at Midway Atoll. So depending on how things are going, we could be seeing a delayed arrival. But then again, remember,
And it
is
just
not
hit
just the first one.
7:17, which is
Yeah.
when we were expecting the first waves to arrive on Oahu. If we can now switch over to, this is a live look at Honolulu Harbor, where earlier we were also monitoring quite a few reports that boaters, a number of them, and fishing boats were heeding the warning, and we also saw them head out to sea, staying away from the channels, going in water at a depth of 300 feet or greater. And you can see it looks like the harbor is all clear. Even got word that the Coast Guard cutter ship also left the harbor right now. As we take a look at Honolulu Harbor, 7:17, again, the estimated arrival of the first waves here on Oahu.
Yeah, and the ability for these vessels to evacuate is one of the silver linings of an event like this, because you had a 6-hour notice, for the boaters to head out to the open ocean, for residents and visitors to head to different evacuation sites right now. So we're keeping a very close eye. Live look at Honolulu Harbor. It's 7:18 right now. 8 minutes after the first wave was expected, and the epicenter, so to speak, when something like this, the first area of focus is Hanalei Bay on Kauai. We still have some daylight out right now to keep a close eye on this. Now, Drew and Ben and Jen as well, as we're looking at these images here, what should our viewers be paying attention to in regards to the water movement and activity?
Sorry, before you guys answer, can we switch over now to this live look at Waikiki, where we might be able to detect more changes in the water here, and you can definitely see a clear view of the coastline, and definitely empty there. Earlier shots, right, Mark, when you guys began the coverage right after the tsunami warning, the beaches were crowded. You can see that is not the case right now. They heeded the warning. Mayor Rick Blangiardi said, if you're anywhere near the coastline, get out.
And I think it's important to note just generally the ocean conditions right now. We do have a small craft advisory. We have strong trade winds. We also have a rising swell on south-facing shores and east-facing shores. We're seeing wave heights expected today at 3 to 5. And this is wave heights alone, waves that you surf, not the tsunami itself. East-facing shores at 2 to 4. So you could kind of see in some of these shots, there does seem to be some disruption, some rip currents that are happening, strong currents that are happening. So very interesting as we look at these live shots, since it's not, it's traveled so many miles to get here, so far with the epicenter just off the coast of Russia and giving us that 6-hour window to get here. We are likely going to be seeing on a smaller scale of a tsunami, but still a lot of energy. But it's really hard to predict how the wave direction is going to be impacting some of the spots. But like we're talking about, the shape of Hilo Bay itself historically has caused damage in the past, especially for boats and even along the coastal harbors there. So this is something we're going to have to wait and watch throughout the next couple of hours. The initial wave could be small, but then build up throughout the next couple of hours.
One thing that I'm noticing when we have had tsunamis in the past, when we have shown this shot, this live shot of Coconut Island, usually that little channel between the island and the main part of Hawaii Island, you can see a current that is going in and out. We haven't seen that yet in Hilo, obviously. Right now, here's another live look at Hanalei Bay. And whatever was happening off in the distance might have been a camera artifact. Haven't seen it off in the distance anymore, off at the point, but we are still seeing some currents that that still indicates some sort of activity. The shoreline right now, the water has not receded, but there is, again, as Jen mentioned, the possibility that maybe the first wave, not so big, but again, it's a series of waves. We had in 2011, huge waves start coming in and impacting the Kailua Kona area, causing major damage to the shops on Ali'i Drive. And that was like 4 or 5 hours after the initial waves had hit Oahu. And so we're not in the clear yet. It's not a single wave.
That's true. It's not always the first wave that might be the most dangerous, and it is a series of waves. That's a great reminder, Ben. And now we want to turn things over to our reporter, Mahealani Richardson.
Yeah, we had mentioned the vessels leaving harbor areas, heading out into the open ocean. We have great video of some of the vessels leaving the ports. Let's send it over to Mahale with some of the images you've captured. Hi, Mahale.
Thanks a lot, Mark and Steph. And of course, if you need to interrupt me at any moment, because we're all keeping an eye on our ports, but I wanted to show you this video that our Casey Lund was shooting from a Kaka'ako high rise, and it was amazing to see all of the ships evacuating. Now, this is because at about 6:47 this evening, the U.S. Coast Guard ordered the evacuation of all commercial vessels from all commercial harbors in the entire state. So you can see the Coast Guard there was also moving. Several boaters were getting out of the way. I called a boating friend, and he had already gotten the word. In fact, many boaters were not waiting for the U.S. Coast Guard to give this official warning, but everyone just certainly getting out of the way. There are 9 commercial harbors on 6 islands. We also saw there was a cruise ship in the Hilo Bay area that loaded their passengers, and they were heading out to sea. Now, I also called Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam to ask about the military ships. They would not say what the military ships are doing, and so we're trying to get official word on what those battleships are doing. But again, the U.S. Coast Guard has ordered the evacuation of all commercial vessels from every harbor in the state of Hawaii. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Mahealani, for that. And so we were monitoring those live cameras, and we still, during Mahea's report, we have not noticed anything that sticks out just yet. But just before we went to Mahea, Ben Gutierrez just mentioned what is really important, and that is the reason why, even though this timeline, it has passed, it's not the time to go back to the beach. If you're curious, because we have not seen anything noticeable. It is a series of waves. That's what a tsunami wave is. It is not just one, and it is not a surf wave. It wraps around the island.
Yeah, it's not a singular event. This is an hours-long event, right? Right? And we're looking at this. This is something where you're watching very closely. You're looking at the changes in the water activity. Now, as the sun has gone down already, who knows how much this shot is going to change, what we'll be able to see right now as we're staying on our Hanalei cam. We are constantly refreshing, making sure it is the most up-to-date image and the most accurate representation of Hanalei Bay. As the reports have come down, as the updates have come down, Hanalei emerged as kind of the first site that was going to be seeing any sort of activity.
We want to go live now to our live cam on Maui. And this is the coastline there, and you can see, I don't know, are you noticing any differences out there, Ben?
Not just yet. It kind of looks normal, but again, we still have some of those streaks of flatter water off in the districts, again, indicative of some currents that are going on. The people who surf, watermen, waterwomen, those who use the ocean a lot are very familiar with those streaks and look for them, because those are the things that will indicate that could get you into trouble if you get caught in it. But nothing that I see. Jen, do you see anything?
It's really hard to tell from this vantage point, but it does seem like stronger currents are occurring. At the same time, I think it's important to note that we do have high tide that's peaking right now. So there is a rise in water overall and a lot of movement over the water on top of the expected arrival of the tsunami. So a lot of moving parts. It's very dynamic over the Pacific Ocean right now.
One thing that we have had that we haven't really been able to share with you is that the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has been putting out, or receiving rather, some data as far as the wave heights. And so Wake Island got a 0.7-foot wave that was recorded at the buoy there. Midway, 1 feet. That's not the that's basically the amplitude. That's basically the regular. That's not trough to crest. That is the ocean, the regular ocean surface, and then added to that, 1 foot is the wave height. Highest one we've got is one of the dart buoys, which had a 3-foot wave in the open ocean. This is closer to Kamchatka. I'm trying to figure out which exact buoy that it is, but it is Dart 21416. There are a couple of buoys that are kind of like out in the area. I've got just so you know what I'm doing, I'm kind of like looking at the map, trying to figure out which one is 21416. And this is probably one of the ones that is pretty, oh yeah, 21416 with a 3-foot amplitude is the one that is closest to the earthquake itself. So that one recorded a 3-foot wave out in the open ocean. The other ones are a little bit smaller. Back to some of the wave heights. There's about 1.1 feet in Japan. 2 other Dart buoys that are out there, 1.5 and 1.4. 0.6 feet and 0.9 feet. And so there is a wave out there. It might not be that big, but again, even if it's not that big, there's still currents.
I know one of the buoys that they were trying to get more information on was the one in Guam at 657, Ben. Do you see any data generated at that buoy?
Oh, which is that Midway?
Guam?
Guam. I don't have Guam on this list, but I'll look it up.
Okay.
And see if I can look it up for you.
We do want to take a look at one of the reasons, of course, why we were watching Midway Atoll so closely is because it is kind of the first warning when we get a tsunami coming from the west or northwest like this. Let's actually take a look at some of the observed water levels. If we can bring up graphics 12 or max 2 real quick, you can see this very clearly. This is over it seems like the last 24 hours. The blue line, that's the actual prediction for where the water level is going to be. The water level is in red, and you can see as we're going into today, as the tsunami wave is passing, the tsunami waves, I should rather say, is passing the atoll buoy. You've got this jump up, you've got this jump down, you've got this jump up. You've got this jump down. Again, this is just indicative of how many different waves are going to be potentially moving in. Of course, it looks very different out there. It might look very calm on the camera. But again, Ben and I have been talking about how Hawaii is kind of in a very unique circumstance when it comes to our seafloor, our seafloor topography. Our waters get very deep very, very fast. So when this wave, this column of water is potentially moving in, it is going to grow very fast as it reaches the seafloor and grows quickly towards the coast. We get to the deep ocean pretty quickly here in the island chain. We don't have a continental shelf around us like the rest of the continents do. And of course, on that graphic that we were looking at, you can very clearly see the jump in the buoy, jump up, jump down, jump up. And again, that's multiple waves. It's not just one wave.
Is that an indicator on how strong the energy is from?
It absolutely can be, especially if we were seeing a much stronger, like much higher and much lower troughs and crests from the waves. Again, the buoy is on the top of the water as the wave is troughing, so it's going down to the bottom. The buoy goes down, and so you're seeing it jump. This is the height in feet. If you let's bring up max 2 again, graphics 12, so you can see what we have out there. Again, this is on the y-axis. This is the height in feet. You're seeing this jump between 2 to just below -1 feet below the average, very quickly. This is a very quick jump.
Drew, something I want to jump back to is when we heard earlier from Governor Green, he was talking about the activity with the buoy at Midway.
Yes.
And so can you clear up for us and give us kind of like a direct line explanation? So he said it's measured at 6 foot at the buoy. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? What's happening at the ocean surface?
So, to the best of my understanding, and Ben, if I say this incorrectly, please correct me. 6 feet is what he's talking about between the trough and the crest of the wave. So it's 6 feet from the top of how tall it is, how tall the buoy goes up, to how low the buoy goes down in the water. So when we're seeing that, he talked about that 3 foot number, that is 3 feet above the typical water level or the tide level at that time. You can even see the tides in the beginning of this chart here. You've got high tide around 8. And then as you're going into even further, you've got low tide. You can see the up and down, and then you see this jump indicative of the tsunami waves.
We want to show you the waves that were just the first waves to arrive on the coast of Japan here. And gentlemen, if you could describe what we are seeing here. This was shortly after the powerful earthquake off the eastern coast of Russia.
Yeah, it looks like I'm going to assume that the ocean is on the right, or it might be a jetty. Oh, there we go. That's a better view. All right, this is basically classic tsunami wave action because it's coming in from the open ocean, and then you can see that very, very disturbed, kind of a wall of water that's coming in and overtaking, for example, the seawall there. You see the smaller waves, those are probably the normal waves that are, just basically every day. But you can see how that big area of white, that white water that pushes in, definitely that's a tsunami. It's a slightly large one. It's not huge by any means, but it is a tsunami wave because you can see just how much energy that it has basically generated and basically pushing in. And so the waves, the little ones you see on the beach just above, basically in the center there, those are regular waves, but tsunami waves, those have definitely been coming in for Japan. Again, it's a little closer to where the epicenter of this earthquake was. But right now, as we take another look at the Hanalei camera, we're not seeing an awful lot. We're still seeing a little bit of the current action, and it seems a little bit flat, close to the area. All right, Pacific Tsunami Warning Center is about to hold a press conference with the latest information. Let's go live there with the latest.
Coming in at Hanalei Bay, not so big, maybe about 1.5 feet above normal sea level, and then the signal was dropping to below normal sea level when I left a minute ago. But that's just the first part of the wave, and we know from what we observed at Midway, it was actually the third wave at Midway was the largest. So we've got some time to wait here. At Hanalei, which was the first place it arrived, and of course it is moving down the island chain. So we hadn't seen anything on any other gauges as of yet, but we know it's coming. So we're always hopeful it won't be too bad, but anticipating from our models that yes, we are going to have a significant tsunami going across our islands and arriving on all the coasts. We monitor about 15 sea level gauges across the state, so we will have more reports later, and of course our news channels will also probably be telling us what they're seeing in places where they can safely observe the coast. So please stay out away from the coast. I know you've all evacuated, so continue to stay evacuated, and the instructions ultimately on when it's safe to go back will come from the state and county emergency management agencies, but we've got a ways to go. It's probably going to be several hours before we may even be able to lower the warning here in Hawaii to advisory level when waves go down, and probably not at least until tomorrow morning before we're able to completely cancel the warning. And right now most of us are still waiting, and we are waiting to see just how big it is going to get across the state. So stay safe, everyone.
Given that the third wave was the biggest for Midway, are you expecting the same here in the islands of Hawaii? And what's the interval between waves?
So the interval between waves can be 10 to 20 minutes typically, from one wave crest to the next wave crest. And we don't know exactly, that Midway it was the third wave doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the third wave. Here the wave pattern gets very complicated as the wave crosses the state, because those tsunami waves reflect off of islands, and they wrap around islands, and they interact with each other. So at every location it can be a different wave. But the threat will definitely go on for several hours.
Dr. McCurry, if you could kind of encapsulate everything again with regards to what are you looking for right now? I know you said we're still not clear, but what are the specific elements that you are really tracking to see what's that next data point that you can release?
So we're pretty much done with forecasting the tsunami at this point. We are just reacting. So, of course, our center has responsibilities across the whole Pacific. So we are continuing to send messages to other countries around the Pacific. But our main responsibility is here in Hawaii. And so at this point, we're more or less just monitoring the situation to try to determine when we could lower the alert level and ultimately when we can cancel.
The last time that you folks, I guess, were activated in this capacity, was that back in 2011 during the Japan earthquake? And how are the situations different? Because it's about the same direction of where it's coming from.
Yeah, 2011 was certainly the last significant tsunami we experienced here in Hawaii. But we actually handle many tsunami events in the Pacific every year because earthquakes in the lower magnitude 7 range are pretty frequent, maybe about 10 a year in the Pacific, and almost all of them generate some kind of smallish tsunami, but we don't normally hear about it. But sure, yeah, the Japan tsunami was the last significant tsunami, and in some ways it's similar, but every tsunami is unique in certain ways. The way the source behaves affects the tsunami, and crossing the bathymetry in the Pacific, the waves get focused and defocused in different ways, and so that's why we need numerical models to help us predict what might happen on our coast.
I know you were expecting 3 to 10. Now here we are, and we're more in the reaction phase. But can you revisit that prediction of up to 10 foot?
Yeah, sure. So the main thing we use to constrain our models are these deep ocean gauges that we support in the Northwest Pacific. Well, we support them all across the Pacific, but the ones for this event are the ones in the Northwest Pacific, and they're out in deep water. They measure the tsunami without interference from reflections on the coast, which you have with a normal tide gauge that's in a harbor. And so our models try to match the signals that are seen on those deep ocean gauges, and if we can match them, then we know we've created the right kind of wave. And so, of course, in the beginning, we only have a reading on one gauge, and later on it's 2, 3, 4 gauges. And so we keep iterating with these models. But even from the get-go, from the very beginning, the forecast was pretty consistent, even with more of this data telling us that, yeah, Hawaii had this threat. And for the coastline in Hawaii, there's another part of this model that actually brings the synthetic wave up onto the coast in a few, maybe about a dozen places around our state. And so some of those models did say that we would have roughly 10 feet above normal sea level. So that's what we've been going on, and it's been pretty consistent.
And when will you update us again?
I guess I can take your advice on when you'd like an update. I think I should probably come down maybe in another half an hour or so, because we should have more readings from across the state. Okay. And then I can give you another update.
What sort of conversations will you be having in the next few hours?
Well, mostly we will just trying to see if the readings we're getting are consistent with our model, and thinking about the other places around the Pacific that we're advising at this time.
What places are the dozens of places that could see up to 10 feet?
Well, certainly Hawaii has certain areas that in the past typically get pretty big amplitudes, and that's Honolulu Bay, it's Haleiwa on Oahu, it's Kahului on Maui, and it's Hilo on the Big Island. And so those are for our models now, those are also the biggest places. Okay, stay safe, everyone.
And that was Dr. Chip McCreary from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center saying, again, they are done predicting this event It is actually happening right now. And during that press conference, Mark, and Drew and Ben, we were actually monitoring this live shot of Hanalei Bay and actually seeing signs that the waters were receding, and at times even parts of the reef were exposed.
Yeah, I've been looking very closely at the shoreline, which is just above the red banner. At one point, it was a little bit further out, and so that may have been a little bit of the water receding. Not a ton, but there is a sign that something was happening, and there were some people in the Hanalei area who were saying that the water had receded enough where the reef was exposed. We were seeing some things on the camera. We weren't particularly sure what it was, but now looking at it, it might have been the reef getting exposed there, and then the water is now coming back in. But we do have just an indication that some kind of tsunami wave may have occurred or may have arrived in Hanalei. It's not that big, it's just not huge. But then again, remember, even if you don't have the size and height on the surface, this energy goes all the way down to the bottom of the ocean, wherever it may be, and is still capable of causing currents. And we're seeing a bit of that right now because it's a little bit flatter close to the shore, and then you can see those tendrils of currents that are heading out those areas of flatter water that kind of snake out into the further distance there. So it might not be huge, it might not be something that looks extremely destructive, but just from looking at the ocean and the way the ocean looks, there is something happening out there right now. But as Chip McCreary from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center said, this could still be several hours. As we've been saying this evening, it's just the first wave. It's not going to be the whole, it's not going to be one and done. It's going to be an event where we're going to have waves coming in maybe every 20, 30 minutes, possibly for the next several hours.
And it does appear that, from when we first started taking this cam at 7:10, about a half an hour ago, that you can see more movement in this camera. And when you were speaking of an event like this, when you're seeing any types of movement in the current, that can speak to the strength and power. Drew Davis, you're looking very closely at the cams as well. What are you noticing on your end?
Like you mentioned, Mark, we are seeing some strong currents. It's a mixture of water going out. Ben mentioned that we were able to see some of the reef exposed, potentially even pretty far out, closer to that point that you see far off in the distance. And just taking a wide view, if you kind of look at you can see the currents in the water right now, actually. If you look at the water and look at the sunlight, you can actually see the water pushing in towards the coastline right now. So the reflective water, you can kind of see that current pushing in ever so slightly. Again, we are watching for multiple waves here, and off in the distance, the sun is setting, and it even seems like we have one person out there.
Yeah, that's what I was
foiling.
gonna
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
It looks like one person paddling in the water right now on
Yeah.
a stand-up paddleboard.
And the state officials said that they have rescue teams activated and ready to go, but in an event like this, they are not going to be putting their lives in danger and responding to save you. So
Basically, you're on your own at this point.
Yeah.
So if you have not heeded the evacuations, if you are going into the water, despite the fact that you've been told not to do so, you're going to be putting first responders at risk if they choose to go out and get you. Many times, because of the possible severity of the tsunami waves that will be coming in, they might not. They might want to keep themselves safe. They're not going to put their lives in danger just because you did. So we are seeing someone in this cam who's out paddleboarding, but really ought not to be doing that.
yeah, we're also getting reports now of the water receding over on Oahu's north shore as well. We're talking about Haleiwa. We're just seeing that coming in from one of our reporters out there.
Yeah, one of the hot spots that Chip McCreary had mentioned, right? They're keeping a close eye on Hanalei right now and Haleiwa at the preliminary stages of this tsunami event. Our chief meteorologist, Jennifer Robbins, is standing by as well, looking at what we're seeing in terms of any sort of tidal movement, what we're seeing with the currents. What are you noticing on your end? What we're witnessing here, is this kind of typical for what we should expect in this type of event?
Very interesting to watch all of the elements come together right now, and it's unfolding before our eyes. And I really do think, like we were talking about in the press conference, that the initial wave is much smaller, and then we could see that build up within the next couple of hours. But you can actually see the direction of these currents. There is a little bit of stirring up that's going on where it is coming in different directions there. So this current is becoming more strong, and it is becoming a little bit more unpredictable. And that's why, like this gentleman or Wahine that's in the water
Whoever's
right
in
now,
there.
it's just too early to say if the waves are coming our way, and they're going to be coming in waves. We're talking about not just one big wave. We're going to have wave after wave and surges of energy. And historically speaking, because Hanalei is a place that we do have been impacted by tsunami waves. We've seen that along the north and east shores of the western end of the state, and along the north shores of Maui County, and then along Hilo, there historically have seen big significant tsunamis that have impacted them. So it does take time for all of this to build in, and like we're talking about, it's going to be a waiting game right now, and we'll have to be patient and just until we get that all clear to stay out of the water.
I'm going to bring your attention, though, just to about the middle of the screen. You can see the water, the current is moving from left to right. That is water leaving. That's what it looks like, water leaving. And you can see the waves that are rippling just behind that. Those are not incoming waves. Those are waves that are flowing over the reef and heading out. And then just in the foreground, ahead of the water that is moving from left to right on your screen, we can see more rocks that are being exposed right now.
I could see it. You
Yeah.
do see that
Yeah.
receding a little bit more now.
If we
Yeah.
had a side-by-side picture of what we were witnessing an hour before this, definitely looked very, calm with just the ripples of the waves coming into the shore. But now you can definitely see changes in the water.
Yeah, especially since I'm not familiar with Hanalei Bay, but if this were more of a daytime shot, usually what we see when we take this camera for our weathercasts, it's basically water, it's beach. But then now I'm almost wondering if that's not only reach, I'm wondering if that's sand that may be exposed
Some
there.
lava rock along the bay.
Actually, just look where the palm trees are. You can see where the palm trees are. Sand is starting to get exposed there.
Yeah, you can very clearly see the sand, the rocks. Of course, this is the big sign that the wave is growing. It's growing as it's approaching the shoreline. I'm trying to find where that person was, or where they were foiling, whether they were paddleboarding. Were they impacted by the water receding out?
Yeah, it's really
Don't
hard
know.
to see. It's getting darker by the minute right now. And the water is a place not to be, of course, when you see how unpredictable the water is, and especially with the strong currents that accompany a tsunami.
Yeah, in fact, look, I can tell now, that's sand now. There's a lot of sand exposed there. And so you see the waves just off in the distance, but a lot of the beach, a lot of Hanalei Bay, the sand, even as you look to your left, to the left side of the screen, looks like more sand, looks like more of the reef, more of the rocks. It looks like the beach has receded probably about 100 feet.
Do we know how many buoys are in the area?
Not that many. I don't think there's any buoys there. The one that we do have, Jen's going to go take a look real quick.
I do remember while listening into that news conference from Dr. Chip McCrary, he says that they are monitoring 15 sea level gauges across the state as this event is happening to get more data, saying that it's going to be several hours before the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center may be able to lower the warning to an advisory when the waves go down, and it won't be until at least tomorrow morning when possibly that warning is canceled altogether.
And
But yes.
Steph, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it seems like the water might be rushing back in ever so slightly. You can see some waves forming, and some of the sand that was previously exposed is getting covered up. You can see those ripples right in the center of your screen. Luckily, we still have a little bit of daylight over near Hanalei Bay compared to our other tower cams. It seems like some water might be rushing in, but still a lot of sand exposed out there.
Right, all of this happening more than 40 minutes after the estimated arrival of the first waves in Hanalei Bay at 7:10. So these changes right now unfolding as we speak, and we're keeping a close eye on it. Any other observations there, Jen?
It's just really interesting to think about how much energy has moved across the ocean. With the tsunami wave, the initial surge of energy moving at 500 miles per hour across the ocean. And the wave direction really will tell a big story of what kind of wave we get. Like we were talking about, it's going across open waters. It has to cross multiple islands, atolls as well before it arrives here. So that's going to impact those initial waves. And then now we're starting to see that surge of energy that comes through. So this is likely the second or third wave, like we're talking about, out of this whole tsunami event.
Yeah, and from our reporter out on the North Shore, also reporting earlier that the water was receding and now saying that the tide is returning and coming back. So we are also seeing these changes as well on our shores here on Oahu.
Yeah, and this is going to be an hours-long event. As the forecasters have been telling us, this is not a single wave. They've been telling us throughout this waiting period, this is going to be taking place over the course of several hours right now. Jen, you said it best. We are watching this unfold before our very eyes right now. We're going to be staying on this cam at Hanalei Bay, which is the first site of activity following this tsunami warning. We're also keeping close tabs right now on what is happening up and down the island chain. But, I mean, the way that forecasters were able to pinpoint down and kind of this timetable here from when the earthquake initially struck, I mean, it seems to be right on line with what we're seeing here, and the activity really lines up.
Yeah. You know, speaking of activity, guys, sorry, we just want to take another live look at a camera that has just become available for us.
Another vantage point of
Hanalei Bay. So, pardon, sometimes the live shot there does freeze, but at least this gives us an idea. I know a viewer sent in a screenshot of the changes that were taking place, of the water receding earlier. Of course, this is a live look right now as we are seeing the water lapping over the shoreline there. Another vantage point of Hanalei Bay.
It's hard to tell from this vantage point, but you know, we'd have to see if there's any receding water that happened before this. There looks like there's a little bit of a debris line, not that big. So that would be above the heart. That would be like the line of little tree limbs and so forth. We're going to try and stay on this shot as long as we can, just because we can. But of course, it's going to get dark, and once that happens, we won't be able to monitor this, but the waves will start hitting places like Waikiki, a little bit better lit. We have crews that are out and about all over the islands, and that includes Kahului. Dylan and Chetta is up on Maui. Right now, it looks like things have stabilized, but once again, the difference between waves, the time difference between waves can be 20 to 30 minutes. And so what we saw just a moment ago, where the water was going out and receding out of Hanalei Bay and then coming back in, maybe not that big, but if we do get another episode of receding water while there's still some daylight to play with, we might be able to see that maybe in about 10, 15 minutes or thereabouts.
Typically, how many waves do you expect in an event like this?
Hard to say.
Yeah.
Very hard to say, because again, it depends on how the earthquake basically acted, what kind of earthquake it was. And so, you know, if there was a lot of shaking, then maybe there's a lot more waves. It was just one thrust, which it normally isn't, then, well, you're kind of stuck with a bunch of waves, you know. So basically, as Dr. McCreary said, this could be a case where we could be going on well into the night, and the first wave may not be the biggest one. It could be some of the successive waves that come after it.
I mean, if you remember, Ben, the 2011 tsunami, I mean, that we weren't expected to feel the effects and see the first waves until sometime around 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And the all clear wasn't given until hours after that, and we were still waiting to see the effects. I remember it was a long period of waiting, but the damage was significant. Even though the waves looked small, you cannot see visibly the power and the force of that rushing water.
The surge
and
coming
that is
in,
what
yeah.
caused all of the damage to the piers, to the boats, the boaters who weren't able to leave in time.
Yeah, that's why we're talking about the boats having to leave when they can, and the Coast Guard saying evacuate, take your vessels out to open water at least 300 feet deep so that you can avoid the surge. That's basically what it is, and we have been repeating it often. It's not a surface wave. It's just basically the energy that goes all the way from the ocean surface down to the bottom, and so you're going to get strong currents, and as, again, it gets into shallower water, it's going to go not only higher, but it's also going to get wider, and so you're going to have an area of strong currents that are going to impact. They're going to swirl around. They're going to do strange things that as they interact with the reefs and they interact with the bottom of the ocean.
I mean, just so that you could illustrate it more, Jen, I mean, if you could talk about the power of these waves, I mean, the governor said it as well. I mean, it's not the height of it, but he may be saying it's 3 feet, but it's strong enough to move a house or a car.
And we're talking about the forward motion in all of this, and it was moving at speeds of 500 to 550 miles per hour. And then once it reaches more shallow waters, it does slow down to speeds about 30 miles per hour, but it's that forward momentum that gets it going. And like Ben was talking about, spreading exponentially and widening as it does. And that's why this is wraparound energy. It's not like one side of the island is protected and the other side is not. This is going to be a whole statewide event as it wraps around. And then as it interacts with our topography, with our outer reefs, with our inner reefs, then we will see what kind of wave that it's going to be facing into the next couple of hours. So very interesting to see the dynamics of all of this come together. A lot of numerical models are put together to predict the wave speed and arrival times. And I do think they did a great job with the arrival times with this one, because we have been seeing activity since the 7 o'clock hour.
It's almost like trying to predict what a hurricane can do.
No problem.